Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are at the moment. And good afternoon for Nathan. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, Anna. I'm looking forward to sharing and seeing what comes up in this conversation for sure, 100%.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And well, I invite everyone who's watching to leave us your comments. Even if you watch after this conversation, it would be great to see what came up for you. And well, for those of you that are new to this space, I want to introduce you to the Conscious Wellbeing Festival. These spaces have been created in order to share some wisdom, reflections about our connection to the earth, to our ancestral knowledge, and at the same time, for us to remember that we are all one, regardless of the place where we are in. Como podemos tener audiencias de diferentes lugares, los invito a que se conecten y que sean pacientes con nosotros y la traducción, porque vamos a estar compartiendo lo que va a ir sucediendo en este espacio en inglés y en español. Bueno, ahorita les voy a presentar a nuestro invitado especial y con él vamos a estar hablando de la importancia del cuidado de nosotros mismos, al mismo tiempo de nuestras raíces ancestrales y de qué manera con el trabajo interior podemos recordar quiénes somos realmente. We will be sharing experiences about how we can connect with our inner resources in order to remember that we are all one together in this planet, evolving, and Nathan is an expert in accompanying others in this journey. So, in order to start, I want to invite Nathan to tell us a little bit about what you consider well being is in your life.
Mm. I think that through my experiences, which I know we're going to talk about, is the key thing for me that well-being really means is safety, psychological safety, connective safety, environmental safety, all of these things. It's about being in right relation. And when we talk about kind of the ancestral, the earth wisdoms, these things, it's about being in right relation to all of those aspects and feeling safe in ourselves when we're in that right relation. Because we can't have the well-being if we don't feel safe, because we know there's this constant tension of, is something going to happen? Am I going to die? Are people in my family threatened? Are my food resources threatened? Have I got a roof over my head? It's creating this safety around us, but primarily that safety comes from inside of us, which we then create around us. And this is what creates the well-being. And this kind of, it's absolutely, it's fundamental to whether we're in a relationship at home, in a relationship at work, in a relationship to the work we're doing, in a relationship to ourselves. Do I feel safe with those connections to those different elements? And is my being going to be well as a result of that? Because the moment that I go into tension, the brain starts to work in a different way. If we've experienced trauma as a child, if we've experienced traumatic events which have changed us psychologically and physiologically, we don't have this understanding of what that safety is, and it causes us to disconnect from things. And that disconnection then leads into illness, incident, disease, all of these aspects. So it's all about that safety. All
That's
about
amazing.
that.
Thank you so much, Nathan. And I think this is super important for us to introduce also in Spanish. There is a difference between the language. For example, in Spanish, we talk about the fact of being well, but it's a state which is not permanent. It's something that you are in a way at in a specific moment, and then maybe you feel different the next. But being is something permanent. Well-being is something permanent. So we have been also talking that it's so important that this bienestar is something permanent. That is not only something that comes and goes, but it's something that needs to say. Bueno, les voy a contar lo que nos dice Nathan acerca del bienestar, y él enfatiza que el bienestar se da en la medida que nos sentamos seguros. Si nos sentimos seguros, podemos sentir bienestar, y ese bienestar se da, y esa seguridad se da desde la infancia. Entonces, si desde que somos pequeños hay de pronto trauma o experiencias difíciles de procesar, ese bienestar que tiene que venir desde el interior, pues está un poco revuelto, confuso, y eso es lo que hay que trabajar como adultos para regresar a ese espacio interior seguro. Con Nathan vamos a estar hablando de la importancia de trabajar sobre el trauma también. So I'm saying that about the importance of working on trauma, according to what you're saying, since we are children, and to come back to that place of safety in us. Okay,
Yeah.
bueno, I'm going to introduce you to Nathan now. So Nathan, he's a FreeMind Rapid-Change Hypnotherapist. We will be talking about all these different aspects of his career and his personal journey, so you could understand more about what this is. And he's also a leadership coach and experienced psychedelic integration coach. He has over 15 years of experience in coaching and therapy. The majority of his time is now spent helping people reconciling with their past, overcoming childhood trauma, as we have just said, and retrieve lots of frozen parts of their psyche and soul, and helping reminding them to love themselves in the way they always wish they had been. From living in Brazil to train martial arts and managing the customer services for Time and Fortune magazine, while living in Amsterdam, all the way through healing himself of Crohn's, Nathan is well versed in healing the past and bringing the best out of people, both individually and in teams. If you think or feel you're not good enough, keep replaying past events, struggle with addictive behaviors or patterns, feel stuck in relationships, either codependence or extreme independence, Nathan's guidance through FreeMind Rapid-Change Therapy can make a difference, a really big difference. So, yeah, amazing. All the experience that Nathan has, as you can see, has been helping people travel their own inner journeys, and this is accompanied with Nathan's own inner journey, because apart from his qualifications, he's qualified with his own personal experience to help us and guide us in these journeys. So
Thank
that's
you.
amazing. You're welcome, and thank you for your amazing work, Nathan. I'm going to translate this super quick. Nathan, él trabaja un tipo de hipnoterapia que se llama FreeMind Rapid-Change, y él también es un coach de liderazgo. Él también hace integraciones de experiencias psicodélicas. Al mismo tiempo tiene 15 años de experiencia en terapia y en coaching. La mayoría del tiempo él acompaña a personas a reconciliarse con su pasado, a poder recuperarse de trauma de la infancia, y al mismo tiempo poder recuperar esas partes congeladas de la psique que se quedaron congeladas, y para recordarnos y ayudarnos a integrar esas partes en nuestra alma. También Nathan vivió en Brasil, entrenó artes marciales y manejó el servicio al cliente para la revista Time and Fortune. También vivió en Amsterdam, y en todo el proceso de sanarse de la enfermedad de Crohn, Nathan también ha podido sanar mucho de su pasado y poder ayudar a que las personas encuentren lo mejor de sí mismos de manera individual y en grupos. Si ustedes creen que de pronto no son lo suficientemente buenos en lo que hacen, o tienen como traumas del pasado y tal vez estén pasando por experiencias difíciles con adicción o repitiendo patrones, Nathan puede ayudarlos a llevar a cabo este tipo de procesos. Ok, luego les diremos cómo pueden seguir a Nathan. We will remind you how you can follow Nathan's work. You can find him on Deeper Healing and Beyond on Instagram, and also as Nathan Simmonds Coaching. And at the same time, he has an amazing Facebook group and community where you can join as well. And we will be talking about that too. Okay, Nathan. So let's start talking about your inner journey because that's one or the main part of your experience. So what
Yeah.
what do you want to share with us about
I
it?
did- Yeah, so I'm 44 now. So, I think, yes, I've got these qualifications, but those qualifications have come as a result of the experiences that I've had. So primarily one of the key things that happened was I became really sick. So as a young boy, I was around about 8, 9 years old. I experienced extreme stomach pains, was experiencing huge pain, gut problems. And next thing happened, I was in hospital having my appendix removed. It's a very standard operation, very standard procedure. But the pain didn't go away. The pain continued afterwards, and it lasted. It kept coming back. I kept going back to hospital. The hospital was saying, "No, there's nothing. You've got. This is normal." Da 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 da. And it just got worse and worse. And then within the space of 3 months, maybe, I was then readmitted to hospital, and I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in floating speech marks. And I spent about a year in hospital. So I had my appendix removed, I had part of my intestine removed, and all sorts of, really awful things that children really shouldn't experience, So these were kind of some of my really informative years. I came through that. Part of that story is my mum did a whole heap of research about Crohn's. We found an amazing therapist at the time. We did work with the diet. And actually, we didn't treat the Crohn's, we treated something else underneath it. And since then, so you're talking 34, 35 years, I've never had a reoccurrence of Crohn's disease ever. Whereas most doctors and most people will tell you that you have it for life, it's incurable, and you'll always experience it. So this was some of my early experiences. I then got to secondary school, and this is the very condensed version. And at about the age of 13 years old, I then started experiencing extreme bullying. So a group of boys from another school, every night on the way home from school, would see me, and they then started making me sport. It was verbal abuse at first, and it became physical abuse, and it was just constant all the time. And I'm a big guy, so these kids were a couple of years older than me. I was still kind of very skinny because of what had happened with the hospitalization. But it was absolutely terrifying. So what I would do is I would walk the long way home from school every night, and I would run the last bit so that I would still turn up at home on time, so no one would ever ask me any questions, because my brother was the toughest kid in school. All the girls wanted to be with him, all the boys wanted to hang out with him. So I felt like I couldn't tell him what was happening to me, because I felt like I would be less of a man. And I couldn't tell my dad because my dad was a police officer. And again, I just felt I couldn't. At 13 years old, I felt like I couldn't tell anyone because I thought I would be seen as less than. So I was emasculated. I was emasculating myself, switching off my masculine energy. But as I kind of started to hold this stuff in me and wasn't able to deal with it, just came up as aggression. I was just angry constantly. And then from what then happened from there, I moved from being bullied and I became a bully. So I started attacking other people. Because, in my head, what I was saying, well, other kids experience this. Why have I got a problem? Why can't I be tougher? Why can't I be harder than that? Why can't I put up with this? Okay, and then the normal kind of mental dialogue from there is, well, you just go and bully other people. You get a reputation for yourself, so people stop bullying you. So rather than actually dealing with the pain and dealing with the trauma, I just started getting myself higher in the pecking order, in the hierarchy, so that it wouldn't be done to me. So I did it to other people. And what I didn't realize at this point, I think it's Sandra Wilson, Dr. Sandra Wilson said this: hurt people hurt people. Everything is just a bid for connection. But I didn't understand that. I didn't understand that from the boys that were doing this to me, and I didn't understand this is what I needed because I was doing it to other people. I didn't have that safe environment in order to have those conversations. And from here is when I started to numb out, I started to self-anesthetize. At this point, I've started to use marijuana just to get myself through the day, just to kind of block it out, just to try and look like I was tough, you know. But I held on to this for a really long time, not processing, not dealing with, getting into work, struggling with work and not really fitting in with the world. I just didn't feel like something just didn't feel right in me or around me. And you know, there are good things that have happened in my life. I went traveling. I met the lady that I'm now married to. I met her. And we went traveling, but we went in separate ways at that point, and we went traveling individually. And then when I returned back to England, after having these amazing experiences while I was traveling for 15 months around the world, I came back, and I just came back to the same town, the same people, the same situation. Didn't feel like I fitted in. I felt it even more intensely that I didn't fit in, because I'd had all these amazing experiences that other people just couldn't comprehend. I'd seen Australia, I'd seen Thailand, I'd been to Cambodia, to Burma, and all these wonderful places. And the people around me were just doing exactly the same thing they were doing 18 months beforehand. And I just became even angrier, and it just came all flooding back. And at this point, I then started using ecstasy and cocaine. And then at around about the age of 22, I overdosed on recreational drugs. I took 16 ecstasy tablets in one night and over 5 grams of cocaine in one sitting. And psychologically, everything snapped. Mentally, emotionally, physically, the whole body just started to shut down. The only reason I survived is because I had built up such a high tolerance to these chemicals over the course of 8 months that actually when I did that, my body was ready for it, but emotionally I came to a snapping point and my whole world came crumbling down. Relationships that I thought were genuine weren't. They fell apart. The people I was hanging around with, those relationships, the work that I was doing, everything just completely got turned upside down. Which, you know, in retrospect, I understand needed to happen in order to get me out of that situation, because I wasn't aware it was going to happen like that. But I didn't have the right support. I didn't have the right container. I didn't have the right people around me to help integrate that experience. No, the whole dynamic was out of relation. The whole dynamic was not safe. It was not psychologically safe. So I was just building up to this point where something was going to happen to get me out of that, you know, that moment of clarity, that healing crisis. And in that moment when I did that I had that healing crisis, and then everything changed. No, it radically changed. So the lady that I was with, that I'm now married to, we'd gone our separate ways for 18 months. This situation happened with the overdose, and then 6 weeks later, my wife then walks past me in my hometown. We don't come from the same town. It's the night of my birthday. She walks past me on that. We start a conversation. 3 weeks later, she moves to Amsterdam. 9 months later, I moved to Amsterdam. So I started a whole new life, but still processing a lot of these things that I'm kind of dealing with and working with. And at that point, you know, I again started different jobs, and then, you know, got some amazing work. I ended up working at Time and Fortune magazine, managing their customer services in Amsterdam for their international client base, and National Geographic, and a whole load of other amazing people. But again, still processing these things. You know, I've been learning through this different psychotherapy techniques, different coaching techniques, but not really applying them. So I knew them at an intellectual level, but not at an identity level. So maybe if I'd known them at an identity level, maybe those things wouldn't have happened, because I would have seen them. But what's actually happened is going through those experiences through the course of my life, learning the content, learning the ideas, having the experience, learning another idea, having another experience of where things don't work right, where things are out of whack, has then helped me now, because as I returned to England, I then got, you know, returned back to work in the UK, working in banking, working in car insurance. Again, you know, ethically, morally, so far detached from who I am as a human being. but there's a necessity to get a work, there's to get a job, there's an idea that you have to go and get a certain kind of job and you have to work a certain kind of hours in order to get your pension and to be stable and do this, you know, regardless. But still there's this part of me that doesn't fit in, but still there was this part of me that was using these bullying tactics to get people to deliver results and to get success. So it was still the same stuff playing out. You know, it was me not creating that psychological safety for people at work and in their own mental health. So I'm still holding this energy. And then at 36, my daughter arrives. So we have one little, I say little girl. I'm 6'6", so I'm almost 2 meters tall. My daughter's 10. Crikey, she's already here on me at 10 years old. So either she's going to be pro basketball or like, I don't know, pro basketball or volleyball, or a really good painter and decorator, because she's going to be able to reach the ceiling for sure. But she's amazing, beautiful. But she arrived when I was 36. And then what happened at this point is, you know, I've built up all these experiences, understanding what safe looks like, what safe doesn't feel like, learning these models. And then Poppy arrives and I have a crisis of leadership because my team wasn't performing in the best possible way. They weren't getting the results. It was kind of average at best. And I've been trying everything I could in order to get these people to deliver results and be more successful and get what I was talking about. It just wasn't happening. And then Poppy turns up and my whole world is brought into question. Who I am as a man, who I am as a father, who I am as a husband, how I support people, how I inspire people. Because parenting and leadership, they're not two sides of the same coin. They're one and the same thing. You know, parenting, however that journey comes for you, is the most amazing leadership experience you will ever go on, the most amazing leadership journey you will ever go on, because you cannot fire your kids. No, it just doesn't. You cannot do that. No, whether those relationships are strained, they are still related to you by blood, by gene, by biology, yeah, or psychology, depending on how that relationship is. So when you look at this, it's like, so I started to question, who do I want to be in relationship to my daughter? How do I want to show up for her? How do I want to show up for these people? Because, you know, I can turn up and behave a certain kind of way, or I can do certain things. That's great. You know, and I want to be a good person, but who am I all the time? How do I inspire this person? How do I show up as a better father, as a better leader, to inspire her to be an even better person than me, to supersede where I am in my life? Because, you know, no parent wants their child to be equal to or less than them. No parent in their right mind wants that to happen. They want them to supersede them. So this is where that leadership parenting piece comes in, because actually the greatest leaders don't want their people to be equal to or less than them. They want them to supersede them. Now, the people that are in my teams, I treat them like my children, not like a child. So when I'm doing this, is like, okay, I want to give you everything that I can, everything that I know, everything that I understand, every experience I've got, have it all, so you can do better than I did. So you can go and get more promotions than me. So you can get a bigger pay packet. So you can go and enjoy your life far quicker rather than like me, struggle, get to 36, have a realization, get to 40, and then do what I'm doing now. Actually, why don't you know that at 20? Why don't you know that at 24? Here are my experiences from the age of 22, 23. This is what it looks like when you go one way. This is what it looks like when you go the other way. Here's the opportunity. How do I inspire people to take that experience? And then from there, I was really struggling with the job. I mean, car insurance is not the most exciting thing in the world. Like, it really isn't. And in the nicest possible way, it's not going to put the world to rights. It's not going to create, it's not going to cure climate change. It's not going to cure cancer. And these companies will try and tell, yeah, we're doing it for the people. We know it's It's not. It's financial industry. It's all about the numbers. It's all about the data, and very few of them care about the people. So I really struggled with this. I struggled with my leaders, the people that were supposed to be my leaders. I struggled with that. I struggled with the ethics, with all of those things. And I then qualified as a leadership coach, because the leadership training and the leadership capability that I could see was not there. So as I was doing this, I was like, okay, I need to do something. I know more than these people. I've learned more. I've read more books. I've watched more YouTube. I've watched more TED Talks. All these things. I've got all these skills. Okay, cool. I need to really package this up and make this a real thing. So I qualified as a leadership coach. Crikey, I don't know how many years ago now. But this was kind of my first really inroad of seeing how damaged leaders are, but how much damage they're causing through their lack of understanding, their lack of awareness. And again, coming back to that quote of hurt people, you then start to see how leaders are behaving, how their business operates. You can start to see how the behaviors of the leader that sits behind that team, that sits behind that organization. So I'm starting to see this, and I'm struggling with it. I'm like, okay, cool. I don't want to be doing this anymore. I need to be training. I need to be sharing these ideas. I started to then move into leadership training and development. Got a separate job alongside my full-time job, so doing contract work, getting some great results, working with some amazing people, some of them big names in the UK and in Europe, some of them big names, globally, like Krispy Kremes. I've worked with people from McDonald's and a few other places, delivering and sharing these ideas. And then eventually what happened was the experiences that I was sharing, the training I was delivering, the company I was working for said, Nathan, we love your work. Our clients love your work. Come and work for us. And we want, great. So I negotiated a pay rise, a reduction in hours to work on my own business and all these things. It was amazing. But this was September 2019. So February 2020, 5 months later, COVID lands. All of their clients postpone it indefinitely within 48 hours. So this company that I'm now working for, delivering training content, everything just flatlines. We pivot the business, we pivot what we're doing different things, working, pushing the brand, trying to get more clients in to do more remote work. It was kind of working, but it wasn't working as well as it needed to be. And in that moment, there was some tension between my boss and me. His personality traits were starting to come to the surface, where his business was under stress. He's an entrepreneur, he's doing what he's doing, but there was stuff in there that was coming to the surface, which was then being projected onto me, and it wasn't mine to hold. And I could see it, but I was like, okay, cool, I didn't expect this was going to happen to me. But again, we just come back into that trauma pattern, the bullying, the undealt with wounds. And it's all childhood stuff from when I was kind of 12, 13 years old, all coming back to the surface when I was 42 years old. So there's this constant repetition of these experiences. And actually, at this point, I've also been kind of doing a little bit of self-experimentation with some psychedelics and some support around this, and just exploring it. I got really enthusiastic about the convergence between leadership coaching and psychedelics, and the possibility of using this for productivity, for innovation, for exploring conscious business. I was really kind of looking at this, but the deeper that I'd started doing the work with the psychedelics, the more I realized actually you have to clear the trauma stuff in order to be able to innovate. You have to clear the trauma stuff in order to be able to move forward, because you can only go as fast as the slowest parts of you. So as I started kind of clearing this, is like, okay, cool, that's a great idea, but actually this is the stuff that needs to be worked on. In order to do that, I need to do this. So I started using magic mushrooms, psilocybin, doing microdosing, as well as doing larger doses as well, much larger doses than normal, than most people do. So I was kind of experimenting with this, and it had some great experiences. But what I'd already learned through coaching, psychotherapy, NLP, already gave me this amazing framework of how to hold these experiences and how to hold my own experience inside my own subconscious. So I was already really well equipped to do this. I've been doing 20 years of preparation pretty much to get to that point with all this learning and these personal endeavors and understandings. So I had these great epiphanies, much more comfortable, moving much more smoothly. And then I was preparing to sit with ayahuasca for the first time, which was beautiful. But in the 30 days before doing this, this situation with my boss at this time was starting to escalate. And halfway through this in this relationship, 2 weeks into this preparation to sit with the grandmother, I was like, I can't do this anymore. This isn't who I am. This is not where I'm meant to be. So really fully into my center, really, really very calm, very, very thoughtful, a lot of kind of preparation for sitting the medicine that I was undertaking. Dissolved the relationship as it was in the middle of a pandemic. I'm the only income earner in the house because we home educate our daughter. But my wife had heard some of the conversations. She was fully supportive of what we were going to do. And she was like, we'll make it work somehow. It doesn't matter. We'll make it work. Okay, cool. You can't be working with this person. Great. So at that point, I went, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I prepared for the medicine. I went self-employed in the middle of a pandemic, which is, is a test in itself. But the test was trust and surrender. Trust and surrender. So the job goes, okay, cool. I'm getting a little bit of extra work. There's some bits coming in, but it's not quite enough. Then we have a mortgage holiday because of the pandemic here in the UK. They enabled banks to give us a mortgage holiday to give people a break. 3 months later, I still don't have enough money coming in. We can't afford the mortgage. We have to sell the house. So the house goes. Trust and surrender. Trust and surrender. So I'm going through this experience. And then as I'm going through this experience, this opportunity came up to do this video work. It's a different story altogether. But they said, oh, do you know anyone else? Any other speakers that might be interested in doing this? I was like, yeah, I know a couple of people. There's one person I do know. I kind of know him, but I haven't spoken to him. So I send him a message. And he said, yeah, that's really interesting. I'd love to find out about that. Let's connect. So we go to London, we meet. And this is Tom Fortis-Mayer, who then becomes my teacher and friend. So we have a conversation. I'm talking to him about the problems in leadership and leadership psychology and dynamics and the problems in corporate and all of these things and how much damage they're causing to people and damage they're causing to the world and the mental health crisis inside, so-called Western culture, industry and corporates. And he just says, this is exactly what we do at FreeMind Rapid-Change Hypnotherapy. Come and train with me. And I will show you exactly how to do this. So all these times that I could see these problems with people that I couldn't take them to comfortably or safely, I then learned rapid change hypnotherapy with Tom. And I now have a safe container to take people and their experiences into that so that they can address it and work with it and heal it and reconcile it. So this then happened 2 years ago. And there was me struggling with my business, struggling with, trying to find clients, trying to work out what I'm doing in the world. I speak to Tom, and a friend of mine, she calls me up just out of the blue and said, how are you, Nathan? Great. And I'm talking to her about my life. And I said, I'm going to train in hypnotherapy. And this hypnotherapy does all this inner child work and these regression work. And we can explore these past traumas. And it's amazing. And I'm going to combine it with these tools that I've learned before. And she said, that's amazing. Can I sign up to work with you once you've done the qualification? And I was like, yeah, okay. And then she said, I've got a friend of mine that might be interested in, have a conversation with her and see and this other lady then says, that sounds amazing. Can I sign up to work with you as well once you've done the qualification as well? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I started that trust and surrender. Had the job not gone, had the house not gone, had that situation not occurred, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to speak to Tom because I wouldn't have been trying to find my way and I wouldn't have been able to get that qualification or get that training in that way, which has then opened the door from what I'm doing now. And that was almost 2 years ago. So now it's been a phenomenal, powerful, working with people, even in that training, I got to look at my bullying. The training course that I did with Tom when he was teaching us, that is really about, here's the tools and techniques. Yes, you're going to do that with each other. Yes, I'm going to do that with you in a group environment. And as you're doing the training and you're learning the techniques, all your stuff starts bubbling up to the surface anyway. So I then start processing the bullying, the fear of not good enough, the independence, the codependence. It all comes naturally to the surface. I'm like, oh, now I understand that. And because I understand it in me, I understand it in other people, so that when I turn up and do the work with them, doing the hypnotherapy and the coaching, it's like, I get it. I know it from where I am, but here's the framework, here's the structures to explore that. And now, yeah, we're 2 years on from that training. I've worked a lot with psychedelics, and from my own experience, I do not administer psychedelics for other people at this time. FreeMind Rapid-Change Hypnotherapy is standalone. You know, you don't need to do psychedelics to do FreeMind Rapid-Change Hypnotherapy. There are great similarities between hypnotherapy and psychedelics, where they soften the ego, they soften the protective ego, and allow people to get in there. So I've been doing this work on myself with the psychedelics, doing the self-exploration, clearing the trauma, understanding myself, getting the deeper comprehension of me, my head, my heart, on what's going on, so that actually I can show up even more present for my people, you know, the people that I'm working with, and helping them do the healing that they need to do. I feel like I might have spoken quite a lot there. Sorry.
Sorry, but be sorry, please. It's super amazing. Thank you so much, Nathan. And I feel so much in awe with your life journey, because I know your work already. Like, I have seen the way in which you help people, and all this background I wasn't aware. Like, I have heard you talking a little bit about it, like every now and then, but so deeply as you just did. Like, I'm super in awe and very grateful for you to having shared these with us. It's super amazing. I really want to translate this, because I think we are creating these unions between different geographic locations, because I really trust in how we are uniting all this awareness into one. And I am going to try my best to translate in a few words what you have just said, because obviously the way you said it, like, it comes from your heart, and I am going to try my best to do it. And in that way, you can integrate a little of what you have been sharing while I speak in Spanish. And at the same time, then we can continue little by little, like, going more deeper into all the things that you mentioned
Please.
through the slides that we have, so people can understand how these little things are taking place now, like in your life, and at the same time in the way you help others. Okay, thank you so
Yep.
much, Nathan. Bueno, entonces les cuento que Nathan nos acaba de compartir una experiencia maravillosa que él ha tenido en su proceso de crecimiento personal. Él realmente, pues, es una persona que ha trabajado desde el corazón todo su proceso, porque ha pasado por experiencias muy difíciles desde que era pequeño, desde que tenía 9 años. Él tuvo que experimentar muchas dificultades a nivel de salud, con una enfermedad que se llama Crohn, y él tuvo que estar en el hospital durante un año. Le quitaron el apéndice, y pues en ese momento él, pues, digamos que tuvo que pasar por muchos retos en ese momento de la vida. Después de que tuvo el apoyo de su familia y salió de esa situación, luego empezó a experimentar bullying en el colegio de una manera muy, muy difícil, y le tocaba correr por las noches para escaparse como de los niños que lo estaban persiguiendo. Entonces todo eso lo traumatizó de una manera súper profunda, y él empezó cada vez más como a guardar como agresividad en su interior, porque él de muchas maneras quería como poder expresar lo que estaba sintiendo, pero pues ya era tanto el desespero que tenía, que él fue el que se empezó a volver el bullying. Entonces, cuando él recibió primero bullying, luego él empezó a hacerle bullying a las demás personas. Entonces, eso ya después de muchos años se tradujo en que cuando él ya era un adulto, él empezó en los lugares donde trabajó, por ejemplo, como en temas de seguros de carros, y pues haciendo otro tipo de trabajos, pues que no iban de acuerdo como a su experiencia de vida y a lo que él necesitaba. También trabajó en bancos. Entonces él era líder en esos momentos, pero era una especie de líder que le hacía matoneo a los demás. Entonces él era él era, digamos, que un líder negativo en ese sentido, porque todo lo que él habría aprendido en su infancia, que lo había traumatizado y que era agresividad, él lo empezó a llevar hacia las personas que él lideraba. Entonces, como resultado de eso, él se empezó a dar cuenta que él tenía una crisis de liderazgo, pero esto también surgió en el momento en que él tuvo a su hija, que se llama Poppy, cuando tuvo 36 años, y cuando ella nació, él tuvo una crisis de liderazgo, entonces se empezó a dar cuenta, yo quién soy como esposo, yo quién soy como padre y qué es lo que le quiero entregar a mi hija. Entonces, pues a raíz de eso le empezó como a empezar a sanar todo ese trauma que él venía teniendo de antes. Ah, también se me olvidó nombrar, ay, perdón, yo nunca, no, I forgot to connect my laptop. I never do that, but I am going to go and connect it. Perdón que tengo que conectar el computador, 30 segundos. It was supposed to be plugged, but for some reason, it's plugged. Perdón. Entonces, él se empezó a dar cuenta que tenía que sanar todas esas partes de sí mismo para poder acompañar a otras personas. Entonces, bueno, él trabajó con otras personas que ya eran más líderes, pero sin embargo, él seguía sintiendo que habían partes de sí mismo que estaban todavía traumatizadas y que él no podía realmente llevar a cabo un proceso de acompañamiento para otros. Y él también pasó por momentos en los que cuando tuvo esas crisis, él pasó por consumir muchas drogas, éxtasis, cocaína, y bueno, drogas muy fuertes, y todo eso lo llevó a que él tuvo como una crisis muy grande. Esto fue antes de que naciera su hija y pues antes de que se casara también. Entonces, luego cuando él tuvo su familia, él se empezó a dar cuenta que todo esto tenía que sanarse. Y después, entonces, cuando él empezó a experimentar con psicodélicos, pero ya en el momento, pues ya haciéndolo de manera consciente, se empezó a dar cuenta que esto lo podía ayudar también a sanar muchas cosas de su interior, y pudo encontrar una persona que se llamaba Thumb, what's the name of Thumb? Sorry, can you type it? Like the person who helped you.
Tom Fortas Mayer, yeah. Where can I put it in the chat box?
In the chat, there is a private chat here, maybe. Thank you. Ok. Bueno, Nathan tuvo la posibilidad de formarse con Tom Fortes Mayer en un tipo de terapia que se llama FreeMind Rapid-Change Therapy y que tiene como componente ayudar a la persona a explorar esas partes de sí mismo a nivel muy profundo. Y bueno, toda esta situación, todo su proceso espiritual y personal es lo que lo ha llevado a poder acompañar a otros. También tuvo experiencias con ayahuasca, y en el momento en que él conoció la ayahuasca, también pudo encontrar que él podía dejar como las situaciones que había tenido como en el trabajo, que no lo hacían sentir completamente feliz. Y ahí fue cuando vino también la pandemia, y él decidió al lado de su esposa que iban a dejar, pues que iban a tomar el riesgo de trabajar en otro tipo de experiencias que lo hicieran a él más feliz. Entonces ahí fue cuando Nathan se formó en este tipo de terapia y empezó ya a acompañar a otras personas. Y ahora Nathan se dedica a tiempo completo a acompañar a otros, y pues toda la vida lo estuvo preparando para que llegara este momento. Okay, yes, I'm saying that right now, life has been preparing you all the way long in order to be able to accompany others in these processes, and that also, well, the support of your family, and at the same time, the support of these plant medicines help you like integrate all these experiences and take the leap of faith to do what you're doing at the moment. Okay, yep. Thank you so much for this, Nathan. So we can continue, I think, with a little bit of those amazing things that you have been mentioning along your experience that we can highlight. So, for example, the importance of conscious parenting. You were saying something really beautiful, which was that being a conscious parent is to be a leader. Nathan ha estado hablando de la importancia de ser un padre consciente y que él se ha dado cuenta que la mejor forma de liderazgo que puede haber en la vida es ser un buen padre. Okay, so maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah. So probably, and we may even touch on this a little bit later on, but when we look at FreeMind Rapid-Change Hypnotherapy, probably 80% of the work that we do is inner child work. So we're talking to the younger parts of ourselves. We're speaking to the parts of us that didn't get their needs met, that had so-called negative experiences, that weren't connected or supported in the right way, that didn't get the love that they needed in the way that they needed it at that moment. So when we look at conscious parenting, it's actually being aware of what the child needs, and at the same time being aware of what we need and what we experience and how would we like to do things differently. Because what happens in leadership, as in parenting, what we tend to do is we do unto others as was done unto us. And what happens is maybe as a child we experience something, our parents shout at us, they discipline us, they disregard us, they ignore us, whatever it is they do. And we just learn to think that that's normal and that's how life is and that's how we will get treated. What we end up doing is we start to measure our value based on how we're treated. We don't realize what that is inside, what's going on in the internal dialogue. But then as we get older and we end up having our own children, what parents do when they are unconscious with it, they do unto others as was done unto them, in order to validate why they were treated in the way they were treated, in order to create some sense of safety in their head. That's normal, that's okay, look, I'm doing it to my children, so it must be okay. And at the same time, what we're also doing is we're then, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think what the right word is, but what we're doing is we're then validating how we were treated. So we're saying, look at me, I'm a good child. I'm a good son, I'm a good daughter. I'm doing to my children as was done to me. Please see me as a worthy human being. I'm still wanting to be seen by you. But what we're doing is we're wanting to be seen by people that can't even see themselves. So when we get into the conscious, for me, when we get into the conscious side of parenting, it's then understanding, okay, what's going on for me? What do I need as a child? What does my 3-year-old need? What does my 10-year-old need? How do I give that to myself first? Because you cannot give to others what you don't have yourself. You have to be able to give from your overflow. If you want to raise confident children, and you can't do that if you have a low self-esteem. So it's being aware of, okay, what is it I want to do differently? And I kind of, it's a not funny joke, but I learned most of my leadership lessons from some of the worst leaders you could possibly imagine. Huge, like really complex neuroses which they were projecting onto their teams. I worked for people that were taken to disciplinary for sexual harassment. It's like, well, okay, do I really want to? You've made me feel like this. Do I want to make somebody else feel like that? No. But when we start looking at the conscious parenting side of things, it's like, okay, actually, I need to be really honest with myself about how I was let down as a child, maybe, or how that thing that was said to me affected me. Okay, do I want to make another little person feel like I felt in that moment? No, I don't. What would I like to do differently right now? And then connecting to them and getting conscious about what their needs are, getting conscious about what's happening for them. Because when we're unconscious, and this is one of the first things that we see a million times a day when we go out and about, the moment the child can speak, most adults seem to think that the child understands what's being said to them. So when you go to the supermarket and the child's having a meltdown about absolutely nothing, and the parents, they're like, what are you doing? Get up. This doesn't make any sense. Get on your feet. Come on. You're making me look bad. You're embarrassing us. That child doesn't understand a word you're saying. Because yes, they can speak, but their brain doesn't stop growing and developing and coming online until they're like 24, 28 years old. So getting this conscious part of this parenting piece is actually taking a breath and stopping and going, what does that child need? Just because I don't understand what's happening here for this child does not mean I cannot take a breath and stop and connect with them in order to help them understand, or in order for that child to understand what's coming up for them. So this consciousness is absolutely vital. You know, I mentioned this earlier before we jumped on this call, you know, my daughter and I were supposed to be going out today. We're supposed to be going to the woods to go foraging and collecting kind of natural food and stuff and just getting a day in nature in the rain and just doing this. But, you know, we've been doing some stuff this morning, and then she wanted a pillow fight. So we had a wrestle and a pillow fight, which was great. And then we're about to go. But then all the emotions came up where she's been indoors this week. My wife's had flu, and all the emotions came up where she's been kind of stuck indoors doing stuff. Or I've been working and I couldn't go anywhere, and emotions came up, and it's just like, okay, what do you need right now? So I gave her enough space. I said, look, I'm here if you need me for a hug. I'm going to do that. You let me know. I left it 5 minutes, and then I came back and I was like, okay, what do you need? Do you want a hug? You ready for a hug? Yeah, I'm ready for a hug. Now, even though the emotions there, her face is all blotchy where she's been crying so hard, just getting that stuff out of her. So she climbed into my lap. She's 10 years old, but she's really big, and it's funny in itself trying to get this really big child climbing in your lap. And I just wrapped my arms around her, and I didn't do anything. I just held her while she cried. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't need to say anything. But even just giving her that space to feel safe in that moment, coming back to this well-being, this psychological safety, this inner safety, and just to be there with her. It's okay to cry. You're safe. I'm going to hold this space for you. And just as she was doing this, she went through this process, the emotions moved, and she just stayed there while I held her. And all of a sudden, then the whole nervous system just calmed all the way down. And everything came into stillness, because I was in stillness. And the breathing slowed right down, because my breathing was slow. Okay, I'm not going to the woods. Okay, I've got over that. I wasn't going to go out today. We weren't going to do what we were expecting. I've stopped holding on to this idea of what I think the day should look like, and I'm being present in that moment. And as she calms down, I'm holding her, and she goes to sleep. You know, but if I'd still been kind of arguing in my head about, oh, we're going to the woods, and we're supposed to be doing this, and you need to brush your teeth, and we're going to be late, and I haven't achieved what I set out to do today, pressure, stress, that stress is still in my system. That's not going to help her regulate her. You know, she's going to grow up dysregulated, you know, because my system isn't regulated. And this conscious parenting piece is really tuning into that moment and going, okay, what's going on for her? What's going on for him? Because everything is a bid for connection. Everything is a bid for connection. If a child doesn't have the words, if a child doesn't understand the emotions, if the child's crying about something that doesn't make any sense, you know, like, you know, many people, you know, you have children and they start crying, I can't find my blue crayon, and they're going absolutely crazy about the blue crayon. Yeah, and they're, you know, they're 4 years old, 5 years old, and then you give, oh, look, I found your blue crayon. And you're like, okay. And then they're crying because they've got the blue crayon. And you're like, but you've got the crayon. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, you know, to me as a 44-year-old adult, this doesn't make any sense. What are you doing? Caramba. And it's like, but actually, it's not about the blue crayon. It's just there's an emotional need to connect. They're making this bid for connection, but they can't articulate it because their brain isn't fully functioning and fully active. And it's our responsibility as adults with matured minds in order to go, okay, cool, whatever this is, I'm going to be here and connect with you while you work it out inside your own inner dialogue. But what most adults do will push them away. Well, go to your room if you're going to behave like that. That emotion's not welcome at this table. Oh, you're making my heart hurt. Shut up. Go away. Whatever it is, go and sit on the naughty step. Have a time out. Push away. Disconnect. This is like, no. Because what you're doing as a parent then is telling them that when they behave like that, that's not okay. They cannot feel their emotions. Your emotions, you know, are certain emotions you have to push away in order to be accepted into this family. But when we go, the emotions are welcome, all the emotions are welcome, then that child learns how to regulate that emotion and lets the emotion flow through them rather than squash it down. This is, for me, is the conscious parenting.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much. And everything you said, obviously, it's like the base of someone developing as an adult, having those tools in themselves in order to do anything in life. Without having anyone there to support them. Like when we grow up, then we are the ones who need to be our own parent and to be able to do that for ourselves. So it's so beautiful, the like everything you're doing with your daughter, and I am sure that you are continuing helping many people in raising awareness about all this. Thank you so much for this. I'm super going to share this quickly, very quickly. Thank you. Bueno, estamos hablando con Nathan sobre el hecho de ser un padre consciente y cómo a través de ser padres conscientes podemos ser líderes, los mejores líderes del universo, los mejores líderes que puedan existir. Entonces, él nos cuenta, por ejemplo, que cuando él tuvo sus experiencias con adultos que fueron líderes en su vida, lo que hicieron fue justamente hacerle bullying, y él nunca recibió, digamos, como de los adultos, como ese apoyo que él necesitaba, incluso en su vida adulta también, con jefes que pues no lo comprendían, por ejemplo, y pues todo esto viene desde el trauma de la infancia que él tuvo también cuando experimentó bullying, y todo eso él lo aprendió en su sistema. Entonces, digamos que ahora lo que él ha hecho desde hace varios años es darse cuenta de qué manera él puede transformar y ser un líder que pueda comprender al otro y que le pueda dar al otro lo que nunca recibió como niño. Entonces, pues su hija ha sido su mayor enseñanza en este sentido, y él también lleva esto pues a las personas que le acompaña en coaching, al hacerlos dar cuenta que todos sus traumas de infancia es lo que ellos vienen a sanar al estar en la adultez. Entonces, cómo nosotros mismos nos podemos convertir en nuestro propio mejor padre en la adultez, habiendo podido integrar las maneras de podernos autorregular. Entonces, por ejemplo, él dice que su hija el día de hoy estaba teniendo un día muy difícil, que lloró mucho y que ellos tenían ya unos planes preparados para irse al bosque a buscar cosas, pero que entonces él lo que notó era que su hija necesitaba un abrazo de él en ese momento, y más que estar realmente afanado por decirle, lávate los dientes, tenemos que salir rápido, lo que él hizo fue abrazarla y estar con ella todo el tiempo, pues ahí para darle apoyo de lo que ella necesitara. Entonces, Nathan nos dice que lo importante es, cuando estamos siendo padres conscientes, poder estar conectados con nosotros mismos, desde nuestra respiración, de poder estar calmados y de esa manera poderle brindar a la otra persona eso que necesita. Y pues también que los niños puedan entender que todas las emociones son bienvenidas en el hogar, y que si se están sintiendo tristes, de mal genio, pues la idea no es que se vayan y que tengan que manejar eso solos, sino que el padre sea capaz de poderles decir que si están bravos, si están tristes, también son amados, y que pues esas emociones son transitorias. Eh, de esto vamos a hablar hoy por la tarde también con nuestra invitada Isabel Cuello, que ella nos va a hablar sobre la experiencia del nido vacío, en donde ella ha acompañado a sus hijos durante toda su vida, y al mismo tiempo ya, pues ella tiene 50 años y ella ya pudo soltar, digamos, como la parte de ser madre y dedicarse a sí misma. Entonces vamos a conectar estas conversaciones de manera muy linda, viendo pues el haber hecho una buena labor de madre o de padre nos permite después independizarnos. I am saying and inviting people that today we are going to have another talk with a lady called Isabel Cuello. She's a holistic therapist as well, and she's going to talk about the experience that she has been having about being a conscious parent, and she's now 50-year-old more or less, and she's now independent in her experience as a woman. So her daughter and son already are grown up, and she feels super fulfilled with her role as a mom, and now she's dedicating herself with other their areas of her life. So I invite you, if you could join, maybe you can watch the stream later, but I think it would be a great reflection and for you to see that at the end of the day, all of this connects. So thank you so much, Nathan, for all the beautiful sharing that you have been giving us. I don't know if how are you doing about time, because we have planned others things we can skip a bit,
No,
or
we
we
have
can
time.
flew through.
So look, I think for me is kind of skipping to that kind of that trauma aspect to me and really kind of homing on that. Why? Because this time when we have that experience where these emotions aren't welcome, where there's parts of us that are pushed away, maybe we're overwhelmed with sadness or even joy, and it's too much for an adult, it's too much for a parent, and that's not welcoming, and you push it away. So what we end up doing is, it's like we push it into shadow. The anger's not welcome, the sadness isn't welcome, the grief isn't welcome, whatever it is, the fear isn't welcome. So we push it away and we push it into shadow, which is where we talk about shadow integration and shadow work with the trauma. But it's like being on a seesaw, and on the left hand side is all the bad stuff, all the stuff that we think is bad, and on the right hand side is all the good stuff. But we're on a seesaw. So what we do is we try and spend as much time as we can on the right hand side, showing how good we are and being good human beings and all of these things on that side. But because we're on a seesaw, the seesaw tips, and all the stuff that's in the shadow starts to then slide out. So then what we do is we then turn around, we run back up the seesaw and try and push everything in the shadow back into the shadow. Oh, well, I need to stop this. I can't be like that. Oh, people can't see this. And we end up pushing it away. So we can try and balance the seesaw, but then we go too far into the shadow and the bad habits come out, or whatever it is. And we just end up keep doing this, running from one end of the seesaw to the other, trying to balance things out, trying to hide these parts of us which we think aren't good enough, which we've been told aren't good enough, which we think will lose love. If people knew that I'd overdosed on drugs, if people knew that I was a bully, if people knew that I'd done this or done that, would they think I'm a bad person? I'm going to hide that as much as possible. I'm going to disconnect from my past. But that disconnection from that sadness, in order to feel extreme joy, you have to understand what extreme sadness looks like and feels like. And if you're denying it constantly, you push it down, you never really feel it, but it flavors the whole of your life. Because you can't experience the full expression of joy because you haven't experienced the full expression of sadness, because it wasn't allowed in your family or at your dinner table. So when we go and do the shadow work, we're speaking to those parts and we're releasing those emotions. And we're bringing those parts back in, because there is amazing energy in the shadow. When you start doing the shadow integration, especially from a creative perspective, I know you've read some of my posts on Facebook, the poems, the spoken word, the stuff that I write about. Those posts have only really happened in the last 18 months because of the work that I've been doing in the shadow integration work. I used to write poetry as a child, but I stopped writing after the age of about 9 years old. Yeah. But as I've released that stuff, this creative force has come to the surface. So when we understand what trauma is and how it's encoded in the system and how it's squashing stuff down, when we understand it, and you know this from Gabor Mate, trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. It's something that changes you psychologically and physiologically and causes you to adapt your behavior in order to survive. Now, some people talk about, trauma with a capital T or whatever. For me, there isn't a big trauma or a small trauma. There isn't a gradient. There isn't a scale of trauma. You cannot grade trauma on a 0 to 10. There is just trauma. So either, trauma can be you survive an 80-car pile-up on a Canadian highway, and you're the only survivor and you have guilt or you trauma from a natural disaster, whatever it is, cool. Trauma can also be the last words your first girlfriend or boyfriend said to you when you were 12 years old. Because it's something that holds on and causes, I can't be in that sort of relationship because they might say that to me and it makes me feel like that. Okay, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid that because it doesn't feel good. So when we understand how trauma then encodes in the system, we can then start to work with it in a different way. And trauma happens in varying ways at varying points, but it's something that shifts your behavior in order to survive. This is an adaptation, it's not a choice. Now, often when we talk about addiction, or even things like Crohn's and autoimmune stuff, these aren't choices. People don't choose that. People don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, today I'm going to get hooked on heroin. Oh, today I'm going to take 16 ecstasy tablets. Today I'm going to do it. No, we don't make those choices. Psychologically, there is a protective part of our mind that is working and trying to keep us safe. And it's an adaptation that is trying to keep the noise level down inside of your head based on the experiences that you had where you lost connection with people, where you were sent to the naughty step, where you were sent to bed without that, where your mum left home and never told you why and never came back. Whatever it is, these experiences, we lose that connection. We lose our connection to other people. And we adapt in order to survive, in order just to keep ourselves moving forward. And sometimes that adaptation is heroin. A lady, I think she died a couple of years ago, a famous musician in England called Marianne Faithfull. And the only quote that I know from her, which is amazing, powerful, she said, "Heroin saved my life." Because her life was so tumultuous, so chaotic, so problematic, that actually the heroin just kept her on an even keel in order to get through her experiences. Which is the only reason that we do what we do, in order to quieten the noise in our head, in order to just get through. It's a survival mechanism. We self-anesthetize, we self-medicate because of the trauma that we have. And when we understand also at the real base of this, that the very fabric of existence is built on trauma. Everything, and we've been doing it for 14 billion years, sorry. If you look at single-cell organisms, single-cell organisms doing what they were doing 14 billion years ago in the primordial soup of the planet, and then one day one of them goes, actually, why am I doing this? Actually, if I, team up with this little single-cell organism over here, we can then go and beat up that other single-cell organism. We can eat them, which means we have to do less work because they've got more nutrients. Okay, cool. And then all of a sudden it starts out, and that's called evolution. And one of them then gets teeth, and then one of them gets eyes, and then one of them learns how to swim, and then one of them learns how to... And it's because of like these layers of trauma that we've been perpetuating on each other for 14 billion years. But now, as we've got to this position in kind of human evolution, in consciousness, we're now starting to unpick this stuff. We're now starting to see what it's really all about. When you look at how leaders are behaving, how organizations are behaving, how parents are behaving, how children are behaving, and you see that, okay, is this healthy? Let me give you a really prime example of this, from a corporate point of view. Johnson & Johnson's. I'm not going to go too deep on their pharmaceutical. Johnson & Johnson, they knowingly put carcinogenic chemicals in their suntan lotion. And it's public. It's in the ingredients on the back of the container. It's in the public domain. So if you were, and then where do they make most of their money? On cancer treatments, chemotherapy. So if you look from a trauma reaction, these people that are running these organizations, they have a trauma imprint running, which enables them to say it's okay to do that because it makes us money over here at the cost of somebody else's health. This is a trauma reaction. Because if we are in right relationship with ourselves, we are psychologically safe. We would not do this to other people, would we? Now, we wouldn't bully other children. We wouldn't be worried about being bullied. We wouldn't be a leader that jeopardizes people's health and well-being in order to get a vote. This is trauma reactions. We are just reacting. This is why it's called a reaction. We are reacting. We are reacting a past moment in the present, which is stopping us from creating a future. We are doing unto others as was done unto us. We have been, this herd mentality. Oh, in order for me to be accepted, I have to behave in a certain kind of way, which is why we have political movements and business movements and so on and so forth. Because actually something happened, especially in the UK. Most of these children that are now political leaders went to private school. They were sent to private school at the age of 5 years old. Their parents drove them to school, let them out of the car and drove off. That's not psychological safety. Your parents driving away from you at the age of 5 years old and leaving you with a stranger, that causes damage. So we have to understand that this trauma is really woven into the very fabric of existence. It's like, okay, well, how do I want to work with this? What do I want to do with this? How do I want to evolve with this? Do I want to give this to my children? Do I want my child to grow up in a different way? To have a different experience as a parent?
Super amazing, Nathan. Wow. Oh my God. Thank you so much for all these, Jesus. It's like, and I think this message is so important for people to listen to it. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to translate this, what you have been saying. Like, I have been wanting to interact more, but with my process, I'm doing it, and I'm just like delivering what you have been saying. Okay, thank you so much for this. Bueno, Nathan nos habla del trauma y de qué manera toda la fábrica de la existencia, de cómo nos relacionamos con los otros, tiene que ver con el trauma. Entonces, pues él ahorita nos estaba hablando de cómo los líderes de este momento, la mayoría son niños traumatizados. Entonces, por ser niños traumatizados que no aprendieron nunca, por ejemplo, a autorregularse, a regular sus emociones o a regular también las emociones que sienten al estar con otros, y se convirtieron, de pronto también tuvieron experiencias de bullying, entonces ellos mismos se convierten en esas personas que hacen bullying a otros. Entonces, a raíz del trauma que la persona ha sentido en la infancia, es imposible, si no lo ha trabajado, que pueda llegar a ser un buen líder y un buen ejemplo o un apoyo para los demás. Entonces, Nathan nos da el ejemplo de Johnson y Johnson, que por ejemplo, pues sin ir como muy en detalle, que ya se sabe que ellos de manera consciente ponen elementos cancerígenos en los bloqueadores solares, y que pues eso lo hacen para poder después vender, por ejemplo, tratamientos de quimioterapia, este tipo de cosas. Entonces todo finalmente está enlazado una cosa con la otra. ¿Y por qué hacen eso? Porque pues son personas que cuando pequeñas aprendieron a relacionarse con el mundo desde la agresividad. Entonces, si eso fue lo que yo aprendí, eso es lo único que tengo que entregarle a los demás. Entonces, si le voy a entregar un producto a alguien, el producto que le voy a dar es un producto que le haga daño. Entonces, este tema del trauma, Nathan lo ve desde este punto de vista súper consciente, que es el hecho que si trabajamos con los niños desde que son pequeños, dándoles una experiencia de liderazgo consciente, pues vamos a poder lograr tener líderes para un futuro distinto. Y pues eso ya está pasando, gracias a Dios, en estos momentos ya está sucediendo. Por ejemplo, como personas como Nathan, I'm saying that, thanks God, things are happening now, and people like you, for example, are making a huge difference. Y yo, por ejemplo, también he tenido la oportunidad de trabajar con muchos niños. Yo soy profesora desde hace muchos años. I am a teacher since a few years ago, and I consider myself like a leader in that sense, that give children like the support they need in different ways, as a teacher. And I know how important it is. Nathan, so amazing. Thank you so much. Y bueno, Nathan, otra de las cosas que nos estaba diciendo es el trauma. Las personas normalmente van hacia la adicción después de que han pasado por una experiencia de trauma. Y la adicción no es simplemente como, uy, se volvió adicto porque no hace nada. No, la adicción responde a una necesidad de autoapoyo, de poder estar bien. Él nos hablaba de una cantante que se murió hace poco, Marianne Faithfull, y ella dijo en algún momento, la heroína salvó a mi vida. Entonces, digamos, son personas que no lo hacen a propósito, o sea, una persona no se vuelve adicta a propósito, sino que está encontrando las maneras de darse apoyo y de poder salir pues de la oscuridad en la que está. Entonces, pues digamos, en este sentido, todo el tema de trauma, todo el tema de las adicciones es algo de lo que se está hablando mucho en este momento, en el presente, porque estamos dándonos cuenta, así como Nathan está diciendo, que el trauma por el que hemos pasado en la sociedad responde a los traumas que tenemos como niños. Entonces, en la medida que nosotros como adultos nos sigamos apoyando, trabajando en nuestro interior, en nuestros procesos interiores, saliendo como de esos lugares oscuros en los que hemos estado, podemos llevar pues un liderazgo distinto. Nathan también nos hacía una metáfora que tenía que ver con la balanza. Entonces él decía que en una parte de la balanza tenemos como esa parte de nosotros que quiere mostrarle al mundo que somos súper buenos en lo que hacemos, pero al mismo tiempo está la otra parte de nosotros que tiene toda la sombra, que es donde nosotros tenemos como todo lo que hemos reprimido, todo lo que nos ha traumatizado, y sea como sea, eso empieza a desbalancearse si no lo logramos integrar. Entonces, en la medida que empecemos a integrar estas partes sombrías o la tristeza, Nathan nos decía, por ejemplo, si una persona se le permite llegar a comprender todo el rango de emociones que pueden sentir, por ejemplo, la tristeza más profunda, puede llegar a comprender la felicidad plena. I'm saying about what you were sharing about how someone, if they are allowed to feel like those range of emotions that vary, like that go from something really sad, people can experience then blissfulness, because if we don't allow people to go through those emotions, then it's impossible to be able to experience blissfulness. And I connect this with our, I think we can also connect with leading from the heart, for example, if you agree, we can talk about that. How life prepare us in order to bring these messages to others through pain and through challenges. I also have been a wounded healer. I think like all of my wounds have been there, and I love them all. I love them all because they have been the ones who have taught me all of this. So yeah, I think it's beautiful that we can bring these messages across, and that you are also not shy, for example, of sharing and talking about the moments in you had addictions and things like that, because that's what help us recognize and say, I have been there.
Yep.
So it's super amazing. Thank you so much for this, Nathan. So for you, what's to be a heart leader? Vamos a hablar de qué significa ser un líder desde el corazón. Esta persona que ha pasado por pruebas que la vida le ha puesto, que ha logrado poco a poco ir integrando esos aspectos sombríos para llegar a una experiencia de alegría, de felicidad, de poder compartir esto con los demás. How is it for you to be a heart leader, and what does that mean, Nathan?
So many different layers to it. One is this, which is the most important thing, especially when we're doing inner child healing work, when we're doing the trauma reconciliation work, the regression work, yeah, is being the parent that you wish you always had. Yeah. And coming from that space, because so many of us, when we're parents, when we're teachers, when we're leaders, whatever it is, we're still wanting to be seen by people that can't see themselves. We're still waiting for something. We're still wanting some sort of validation, some sort of notice, some sort of recognition. But actually, we're trying to navigate the world. We've been given a faulty map of the world by people that don't even know how to navigate it, and we wonder why we keep making a mess of things, because we're still waiting for that external validation. But actually, when we come to our heart-led spaces, we go inwards and we start showing up as a parent for ourselves. We start showing up as a leader for ourselves, instead of waiting for somebody else to do it. Too often what we do is we outsource our responsibility, we outsource our capability to somebody else. And in that's when they kind of talk about this sheep mentality, this herd mentality is, oh, you're more of an expert, therefore I have to follow you. Oh, I'm still waiting to be seen by so-and-so, I'm still waiting for recognition from so-and-so. And we're just left waiting. So when we're a heart-led leader, actually we are giving ourselves the love and support that we always wished we had. So we do that internally, and then we're able to do it for other people. Because, when we start to learn how to do it for ourselves, and we're like, well, what do you need? In that hypnotherapeutic state where I'm talking to 5-year-old Nathan inside my own head, what do you actually need? What have you been waiting for? And then that 5-year-old part of me tells me what I need that maybe I'm not aware of as the 44-year-old. But as we learn to do it for ourselves, then as we come into that interaction, what do you need right now? I can then show up in a different way and a different expression, rather than trying to put onto you what I think you should be doing, or trying to kind of make you fit somebody else's model of the world or someone else's expectation. It's like, actually, what do you need? And I'm not going to take you anywhere. I'm going to show you how you can take yourself there. That for me is heart-led leadership, because I'm encouraging the individual to stand up in their own power, to remember who they are, to rekindle, reignite that, so actually they can move themselves, which then means they can move somebody else. And as that, from a heart-led leadership perspective, it's about creating that movement. No, I help enable somebody else so they can show up more presently for themselves, which then enables them to show somebody else how to show up more presently for themselves. And therefore, that then is heart-led leadership. So it's got to be from this space is, what am I feeling? Most leaders don't need more training, they need more emotions.
Wow.
So this is just the first part.
So amazing. Wow. I'm going to write this down. Wow, that's so beautiful. Okay, yeah, I agree completely with you. And this is so amazing, because I'm sure that we will keep connecting with other heart-led leaders. And while listening to you, I was thinking how much of a leader we are in our daily lives. Like, if we are living our lives through the heart space, then if we go to a supermarket and we are queuing behind someone, and that person is taking longer than we expected, then we are going to be a leader in terms of, okay, I'm going to hold space for the person that is queuing in front of me, and I am not going to start pushing them around or anything like that. And in that way, we are creating a better society in so many ways. So leadership goes, like, when we are walking in the street, how we behave in everything we do towards others. So I think this is so important what you have been sharing, Nathan. I'm going to translate this super quick. Bueno, Nathan nos dice que para ser un líder desde el corazón, porque este es un nuevo tipo de liderazgo del cual se está hablando mucho y también está sucediendo ya mucho en el presente, lo que más necesitamos es convertirnos en ese padre o en ese adulto que estuvimos buscando durante toda la vida, que nos validara y que estuviera ahí para nosotros. Entonces, en el momento en que nosotros conectamos con nuestro corazón y sabemos que todo lo que necesitamos para nosotros mismos, para sobrevivir, también está en nuestro interior, y que es una fuente de amor constante que nos da lo que necesitamos, desde ese lugar empezamos a esperar menos del afuera y empezar a reconocer que esa fuente de amor está aquí, y es lo que nosotros empezamos a abrazar y a integrar en la vida cotidiana, y eso es lo que llevamos a cualquier espacio en el que nos relacionamos. Yo le decía a Nathan ahorita, escuchando lo que somos líderes también cuando vamos al supermercado, por ejemplo, y estamos en una fila y la persona que está al frente de nosotros de pronto está demorándose mucho más en avanzar, y en lugar de empujar a esa persona y decirle, bueno, apúrese y empezar a generar experiencias incómodas para los demás, podemos desde el corazón decidir ser buenos líderes en todo lo que hacemos en la vida cotidiana. Thank you, Nathan. This is so amazing. So I think maybe we can talk super quick about 5D consciousness because I think that's related. So how is 5D consciousness related to this, and why do we talk about this?
Yeah. So when I talk about kind of 5D consciousness, and this is a big conversation that's happening with lots of people, there's lots of people out there talking star seeds and 5D consciousness and whatever's going on. Yeah. But it's a raising of the awareness. This trauma matrix that we've been living in is really this 3D physical world. It's the traumas that we've been inflicting on each other in this physical world. By the way, this is really important. A really important note about the trauma side of things is there is only one trauma. It doesn't matter what name you give to it. It doesn't matter how you want to dress it up. There is only one trauma, and that trauma is abandonment. It's the loss of connection. It's when we feel abandoned by our parents, feel abandoned from a situation, we feel left out alone, we feel like we're adrift at sea. And it's this abandonment where we lose that connection. We then end up looking for connection or sensation from anywhere we can get it outside of ourselves, but we end up perpetuating the situation that happened to us. So when we're in this 3D kind of physical space, experiencing this trauma, loss of connection to ourselves, loss of connection to the planet, loss of connection to our work, loss of connection to our community. This is all where we're stuck in this 3D trauma matrix. In order to then get into and shift this consciousness awareness, we have to drop into ourselves, because the way out is in. It's that oxymoron kind of thing. Was we have to go inwards to explore the compassion, to explore that space with compassion, with love, with trust, with surrender, and hold that space for us so that we can release the stuff that we're holding on to, that stuff that we've been squashing down for years and years. So that actually, as we start to release that trauma, which is the foundation of everything that we want to work on, it allows us to shift our vibration. We stop resonating from the stuff that we're pushing down. I think it was Booker T. Washington said, you can only rise as high as the man you're holding down.
As high as the what? Sorry, excuse me?
You can only rise as high as the man you're holding down.
Okay. Wow.
So in this, though, but when we reflect this into an inner world, there's a small part of us that was maybe 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, that was traumatized, that had an awful experience that we don't ever want to talk about, and we want to deny that, and we don't ever want to feel that again, and we're pushing that part of us down. We're holding ourselves in that place, and that's coloring and flavoring our whole existence. But as we go in and do the trauma work and we release that part of us, it allows us to shift up. And this 5D consciousness is all about compassion. It's all about looking after each other. It's all about educating or allowing children to really be who they are, and marinate them in love so they can grow up to be who they need to be, who they really are, so that actually they can show up in the world in different ways. They can show up as healers, as creatives, as leaders, as whatever they want to be, and be celebrated for that. Everyone's talking about kind of new earth and 5D consciousness. It's a frequency. We'll still be on this planet, still doing what we're doing here, but we will be living in a different way. And we are, we're at a major tipping point. Right now in society, in global society, we are at a tipping point. There is still more shit to come, though. There are still more problems to kind of bubble up. We're seeing this in different places. But there are more people that are standing up and saying, this isn't okay. We don't want to live like this. We want to live like this. We want to show up in a different way with this 5D perspective, with more compassion, more sovereignty, inner sovereignty, being our own leaders, heart-led, conscious, so that we can show up and, build communities in a different way, build civilization in a different way.
Super amazing. Thank you so much, Nathan. And yeah, like I love the way you also described this when you were talking about evolution. and how much species have always looked for the best possible ways to survive. And if in the past we were doing it more like in a physical way, now this is happening more like in the awareness way. Like it's not only about surviving in the physical, but surviving in the inner space. So knowing that those resources have always been there, and we are remembering that they are there, and whatever we were seeking on the outside is now, we already know that it's there, and we are getting back to that space that is the one that has everything we need. Thank you so much, Nathan. I'm going to translate this super quick. Estamos hablando sobre la conciencia 5D, que es como, también se habla como de la quinta dimensión, y la quinta dimensión no es un lugar al que tengamos que ir, un lugar a nivel físico, sino es una dimensión de conciencia, un tipo de vibración que estamos creando nueva en este planeta, en el cual estamos resonando más desde el corazón, como nos ha dicho Nathan en esta charla. Ya los líderes que se están creando en el presente están siendo líderes que lideran desde el corazón. ¿Y cómo se logra esto? Pues al poder procesar los traumas, al poder ir hacia adentro y realmente ver qué es eso que necesitamos sanar. Entonces, pues a medida que podemos hacer ese trabajo interior, de esa misma manera podemos ir subiendo pues esa frecuencia y esa conciencia de todo el potencial que tenemos como seres humanos. Entonces, estos espacios de encuentro, por ejemplo, son muy importantes porque Nathan nos dice que el único trauma realmente que existe es el trauma de perder la conexión. Entonces, en el momento en que nosotros logramos realmente reconocer que estamos conectados, por ejemplo, en esta conversación, this conversation is a way of being connected, like the fact of knowing that there are people there that are feeling the same, and at the same time people who are listening to us that would know, okay, yes, I am connected to someone. Esto que estamos haciendo es súper importante porque tiene que ver con todo lo que hemos hablado, y es el hecho de acordarnos que estamos todos en lo mismo, que todos vamos en la misma dirección. Nathan nos dice que todavía hay partes pues del mundo, de la humanidad como era antes, que todavía se están sanando, se están limpiando. Puede que todavía hayan caos porque es necesario para limpiar esto nuevo que está sucediendo. Entonces, pues es una alegría ver que esto ya está pasando y estamos como en un limbo o como en un momento de transición, pasando de vivir de cierta manera a vivir de otra diferente. Okay, yes, I'm just saying that we are like in this transition, like releasing or clearing up like those parts of ourselves as humanity, as human beings, in order to move on to a new earth that is already being created, like it's already happening. It's not something that is going to happen in the future, but it's already taking place. But there are things that we still need to heal and release. How are you feeling, Nathan?
Yeah, and it is happening. There are people out there that are making changes, that are talked about adjustments inside leadership space. There are conscious entrepreneurs, there are conscious coaches, there are conscious CEOs out there that are doing things in different ways, that are using plant medicines to reconcile their stuff so they're not passing it on. There are more parents that are doing their inner work so that they don't give that to their kids. You know, even though maybe some people out there are, you know, maybe they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and their kids are in their 20s, and they're like, shit, my son's already got this problem. It's just like, okay, cool. That was kind of part of the path. But now by you doing that work, they can see it's safe to do the work. You become the role model to do that, which then encourages them to do the work themselves. So we're starting to clean up slowly but surely. And really, this generation, I feel now, I really feel it now, is like the line. We're holding the line. There's a lot of us here that are linking arms. We're saying enough's enough. We're not going to be treated like this. We're not going to accept that behavior from our parents. We're not going to accept this behavior from companies. We're not going to accept this behavior from government, so that we can stop that trauma being passed on to our kids, so our kids can grow up in a different way. And there's more people doing that. And yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it's going to take a few more generations. But really, we're drawing the line and we're saying enough's enough. Things need to change. And this is where the 5D consciousness really kicks in.
Exactly. And I think it's also not about the fact of trying to change anymore on the outside and saying we are not going to accept this anymore. Therefore, we need to fight towards those that we are not accepting. But the other way around is going inside and saying, I am not going to repeat what you have been doing, but it doesn't mean that I am going to start a fight with those who are doing it still. But the shift is precisely in saying, okay, if you are still doing it like that, I can do it in a different way. So in that way, we are not repeating the same cycle of engaging with those who are still doing things in a certain way in which we have already understood that it can be done in a different way. And that's
Yeah.
that's that's súper important. Nathan está diciendo que pues ahorita en ese momento hay muchas empresas conscientes, también líderes que están guiando a los demás desde este lugar y personas que ya han puesto, digamos, como la línea diciendo de aquí no quiero pasar más, esto no lo voy a seguir permitiendo, este tipo de actitudes ya no van a seguir pasando. Y yo le digo a Nathan que, digamos, en el momento en que nosotros nos damos cuenta que no queremos repetir los mismos ciclos, pues así nos sigan molestando cosas en el afuera de cómo están sucediendo las cosas, podemos nosotros mismos, desde el ejemplo, y desde la forma como decidimos vivir nuestras vidas, empezar a hacer ese cambio en lugar de estar peleando contra los que todavía lo están haciendo de otra manera diferente, porque ahí es realmente donde se da el cambio real y es dejar de pelear en el afuera buscando eso que el otro se supone que no me está dando y empezar a hacerlo en el interior. I think this is happening already as well in politics as well. Here in Colombia, there has been a huge shift in that sense, and obviously things are shifting. I prefer just to talk about politics like from the heart, and I know that people are some people are scared maybe of certain state of how things could be, but many others we trust that truly like this shift already took place, and like from periods and periods of violence and difficulties here in the country, for example, which have to do with many things that happen around the world, of course, we know that here we are planting seeds of love and they are already being seen like in even in what we plant, the way we plant. Like I invite you to see some of the interviews that are there in Ecosinnova. We talk about how taking care of the earth, planting seeds, creating community again, growing our own food. All of that has to do with the same as well.
Yep. Yep. And it comes back to this 5D consciousness of, well, you know, if I grow this, I share this. If I'm looking after the planet, I have a connection with the soil. Therefore, I actually grow the soil before I even grow a plant. You know, I'm putting my hands in that soil and building connection with Pachamama. I'm breathing those microbiome. Even in the soil, there is microbes in the soil which are antidepressant. So if you have a mental health problem like, you know, or challenge like depression or anxiety, actually gardening is really good for you. Yeah. Like physically and psychologically. So, you know, is you're rebuilding that connection, you're getting back into right relation, you know, working in a community, growing fruit, growing vegetables, connection to earth, sharing those things with people that maybe can't grow because maybe they're old or infirm, but you're helping to support them. That's compassion. Yeah. And really rebuilding those communities and coming back to those not tribes, but, you know, it's community hubs. Now, yeah, we can still have a government that works for the people, but we can have community hubs where those people really look after each other and really build that connection. But because we have lost that connection in the family space, that family community is very separated and pulled apart. We don't understand what a community hub is. You know, 200, 300, 400 years ago, maybe even more, we had community hubs, 100, 150 people that lived together. That was how big society was, and you knew everybody. And, you know, when you were a mother, when you gave birth, mothering wasn't done alone. There would be a whole group of mothers. When you were too tired and too stressed and too angry or too whatever, or postnatally depressed or whatever it was, There would be a grandmother, there would be a sister, there would be another mother that could breastfeed your child while you couldn't. We don't have that. Or very rarely do we don't have these community hubs. So when you look at this 5D consciousness, it's really coming back to these hubs of people interlinking, these community hubs overlapping each other, where people weave in between each other and there is a whole community. So it's really important we have this.
So important. Thank you so much, Nathan. And obviously that's why the work like with indigenous people as well is so important, because they remember this, and they have been so committed to holding this throughout centuries. Like it has been there. It has been there. Even the clothes haven't changed. Like, to tell you that, because it hasn't been necessary, because they have been holding so much that, because they know that's the important thing to hold on to, like to keep family, even the way they meet, for example. It has to do with how family is being built. Everything, even for example, this, which has yeah, it's beautiful in itself, but why is it beautiful? Because it's in accordance to how nature is built and how things are supposed to be. So I was learning from some indigenous people the other day that when they, like, one of the things that they build first is like the basket. It's called canasto. I'm going to write it down here. And in the canasto they put cotton. So when they put cotton inside, they start weaving from there. And the cotton represents the clouds. And the clouds then bring the rain. And then the way they knit has to do with the way in which um, water comes from the clouds and then starts flowing through the mountains. And then that's why when you see when they are knitting, that's why you see like the different threads of the thread. So everything makes sense,
Yep.
even if it's symbolically, but it has a lot of power. And what you're saying about community, like supporting us, each other, that's what we need to remember the most nowadays. And the good thing is that it's already happening. I'm going to translate this very quickly. Nathan habla de la importancia de recuperar la comunidad. Él dice, por ejemplo, que pues en el pasado para nuestros ancestros era muy importante tener a la familia, a la comunidad, que si una mujer tenía a su bebé, pues ella no era sola cuidándolo, sino que a veces incluso había otra madre que podría amamantar al mismo bebé, porque pues se suponía que el bebé era de la tierra y no necesariamente de una sola persona alejada de la comunidad, y que pues la manera como hemos estado viviendo durante años, pues en esta comprensión del mundo 3D en que se supone que estamos separados y una familia está acá y la familia está allá y la mamá va a trabajar y el niño se queda solo. Ese tipo de cosas, ahora se están creando grupos de comunidad en las que se están recordando todos estos saberes ancestrales. Y todo comenzó esto porque Nathan nos decía que incluso en la tierra podemos encontrar microbios que son antidepresivos. Entonces, estos microbios antidepresivos pues los podemos tomar en el momento en que tenemos contacto con la tierra, que podemos sembrar nuestra propia comida, que así, por ejemplo, todavía hayan gobiernos que se supone que están ahí para organizar a las comunidades. Dentro de esos mismos gobiernos ya se están creando comunidades que se están apoyando los unos a los otros. Y pues eso también trae a un término, por ejemplo, que Nathan utiliza como en los grupos que él lidera, que es el término del chamán de la nueva humanidad. So the new earth shaman, for example, is like a term or like a new way of being that has been born because of this consciousness. So can you tell us a little bit about this? Because in your groups, you invite new earth shamans and heart leaders to take part. And what can you tell us about new earth shamanism?
Yeah, so when I talk about myself when I'm doing FreeMind Rapid-Change Hypnotherapy, is really kind of neo-shamanism. It's like new age, new earth shamanism for me. This is where I feel with it. Why? Because often when you speak to shamans, indigenous people, they will do things like soul retrievals, and collecting parts of the soul that have been fragmented and bringing them back in, so that actually you can run optimally. But then when you look at FreeMind Rapid-Change Hypnotherapy, and what we're doing is we're doing parts negotiation. So you can talk to the parts of your subconscious mind and bring them back in. So where you were traumatized, or where you had a trauma experience, or a part of your mind is working against you, or it's not working against you, it's working in a way that isn't supporting you in the best possible way, but it thinks it's doing the best thing for you, you can speak to those parts and bring them in. So what shamans have been doing for hundreds and thousands of years, helping people to run optimally internally in their psyche, modern technology is now doing this in a different way. We're using hypnotherapy. So there is this combination, there is this kind of this dovetail of old ways of being with new psychology. Old ways of being. When we talk about even putting your fingers in the soil, connecting with Mother Earth, science now shows that there are antidepressant microbes in soil, which actually makes you feel better when you do it. So actually, energetically, it's good, but also science is now backing this up as well. So when, again, you're looking at this New Earth shamanism, if you're looking at sound healing, people using singing bowls, and you look at cymatics, how the water vibrates when you put water into a singing bowl, or you float a singing bowl in water and you hit the singing bowl and you watch how the ripples form. It's this connection with what's been known for so long is now being backed up with the science. And now more people are stepping into this space. It's easier to talk this language. It's easier to express this and explain it to people, because there is more science now backing up what has been known for hundreds of thousands of years. Originally through colonization, I saw a meme recently where they were showing kind of the Spanish invaders, the conquistadors, and you got these First Nation people there on that picture. And then the first one is kind of saying, "Oh, and if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be worshiping God. You'd still be worshiping the sun." And then the indigenous person saying, "Yeah, but the sun's real. Like your God, like it's kind of." So hundreds of years ago, when the colonial people were coming in and invading, they couldn't back up what was being shown to them. They were trying to think from a place of logic of, well, it doesn't fit in with the Bible and it doesn't fit in with science, therefore it's got to be wrong. And this is what they were saying with COVID, wasn't it? Follow the science. Okay, it's taken 500, 1,000 years for these people for the science to catch up with it, to understand that actually the world is round, actually that we do not, that the solar system doesn't go around us, we go around the sun. And, and eventually, piece by piece, year after year, slowly but surely, it's now easier to talk about sound healing. It's now easier to talk about plant medicines with people. It's now easier to talk about drum ceremonies, drumming your children in, singing your children in, shadow integration, soul retrievals. This is the New Earth shaman, where actually it's easier for people to go out there and grow vegetables, to put their hands on the soil, to walk barefoot on the land. It's easier for me to connect with a person and speak to their inner child, to speak to their wounds, to help them access their wounds so they can find their medicine in their pain. Because the more we talk about this trauma and this trauma awareness, the more we realize that it's okay to go to those places, and we need people to take us to those places, and we need people to hold our hands, and we need to hold our own hands. And this is what the New Earth shaman really is. And there are more people that stepping into this space to do that work, because they can see the value in it, they understand the connection in it.
Completely. Thank you so much. Yeah, we were having another talk a few days ago. She's a lady who makes these beautiful essential oils. Her name is Noelle. And we were talking about contact, the importance of contact, the importance of, like if there is no one to hold us, for example, or to give us a hug, how much we can connect to ourselves as well. So what all of what you're saying is like growing our own food, being able to support each other, giving ourselves the nourishment that we need. Everything is related completely. So yeah, okay, I'm going to translate this bit. So estos chamanes de la nueva humanidad tienen que ver con el trabajo también que Nathan hace desde FreeMind Rapid-Change Therapy, porque a través de este trabajo de hipnoterapia se va a esos lugares del inconsciente que se han quedado olvidados del alma. Entonces, lo que se hace a través de estos trabajos es lograr recuperar esas partes de nosotros mismos que están olvidadas y volverlas a traer como parte de nosotros. Y en todos estos procesos de chamanismo de la nueva humanidad, se entiende que, por ejemplo, cuando vinieron a colonizar ciertos territorios, esas personas estaban viendo el mundo desde la lógica y no desde nuestra conexión real con la tierra. Tanto como criticar, por ejemplo, que los indígenas adoraran el sol, sabiendo que pues el sol sigue estando ahí, sigue brillando y dándonos vida. Entonces, eh, ya las personas en el presente están recuperando y reconociendo que esa conexión que tenemos con la tierra es realmente lo que siempre nos ha sostenido y lo que por ende nos va a seguir dando vida. That this connection with earth at the end of the day is what has been sustaining us all along, and at the end of the day is what is going to keep sustaining us eventually. So this work of New Earth shamanism is so important, and at the same time, is not only that the shaman is outside, but the shaman is inside of all of us. El chamán ya no es solo un ser que está afuera, sino somos cada uno de nosotros pudiendo eh, tener esta conexión con la tierra, que está ahí disponible todo el tiempo. Yeah, in these conversations, we have also been talking about how animals have been guiding a lot all this process. I had some hummingbirds nesting here in my balcony. They came to bring a message that was super beautiful, and yeah, like the earth is talking to us, and we need to keep listening.
Yeah. And even, you reminded me, even that is, we home educate our daughter. And, once a month, twice a month, they go to a foraging workshop. Once a week, she goes to a forest school. So she spends a day in the forest just learning and doing fires, lighting fires and bushcraft and connecting with each other. But even here, yeah, we're growing lots of vegetables here and we've got some fruit trees, but also the plants that we're growing, we're looking at what we call weeds, dandelions, how we use those. We're looking at other medicinal plants. So our garden is full of herbs. And this year we've learned how to put those, just to chop those herbs up and just to soak them in oil and then, drain them. And then just from the extract of the oil, the benefits, the health benefits of them. So even this kind of practical household shamanism, just it's natural medicines, but okay, tuning into that plant energy, speaking to the plant before we pull the leaves off it. Not just thinking that plant is there for my benefit. Oh, that plant is a symbiotic relationship. I will do everything I can to nurture that plant, to make it as healthy as possible. And in that, I will then respectfully ask that I can then, use some parts of that plant in order to create a medicine that then benefits me. So we create this mutual relationship of give and take, and it's not take. It's reciprocal. So this new is just coming back to these original wisdoms, just like normal things and making it normal everyday behavior,
Completely, exactly. Cooking our own food, making our own bread, for example. Yeah, that's super important. And children really enjoy those experiences because every child would enjoy discovering new ways of seeing the world instead of just everything being knowledge that they can read on a book, or a type of knowledge that is not going to be life changing at the end, and that they cannot be using it in their everyday life. So I'm sure that with what you're doing, you're giving your daughter like a very big example, and she will take that in the other relationships that she has.
Yep.
Ok, estamos hablando de la importancia de de regresar a lo que estábamos hablando de ser padres conscientes. Por ejemplo, Nathan, él educa a su hija en la casa, entonces, por ejemplo, con su esposa, y él, por ejemplo, estuvo haciendo hace poco como experimentos en la huerta, tienen una huerta donde siembran, entonces toman las flores, las meten en aceite, ven como lo que sale de las flores y pues ella está aprendiendo como esos beneficios que tiene el poder aprender ese contacto con la tierra. Entonces, para recordar la importancia que tiene de todo lo que estamos aprendiendo y al mismo tiempo de cómo nosotros como niños heridos de muchas maneras por la educación que recibimos de muchos lugares, cómo podemos nosotros mismos regresar a ser esos niños curiosos, a conectarnos con la tierra y poder estar así. I'm saying that it's so important as well that we remember our inner child too, that if we have a child that we can nurture and that we can give those or provide those experiences to, that's amazing. And at the same time, we as children are as inner child to provide ourselves with those experiences of touching the earth, discovering what no one really taught us. Like the other day, I was visiting a garden and they were offering me leaves and I was super happy, like trying. All of them taste differently and they were great, and the person who was telling me, he was actually treating me like a child that would discover, like, come on, try that one, tell me what do you think it is. And I was like, it was so great. So I think we all need that, because for many years we were in cages, but now we are opening up those walls and connecting back to what has always been there. So thank you so much for this, Nathan. Thank you so much. How have you felt today in this
Yeah,
conversation?
good. It's nice to talk about this thing because it's very often when I have these conversations, I talk about one very specific thing. Like often it's very much the hypnotherapy thing, but this isn't just who I am and what I experience. You know, I have histories of healing. You know, I have my own history of healing my own autoimmune. I've studied permaculture. I can work the land. I understand ecosystems. I understand
Mm.
I understand trauma. I understand addiction. You know, from an
Wow.
experiential point of view and from a educational point of view, you know, I understand how people work and what people need. So it's nice to touch on different aspects of that in this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. Yes, and at the end of the day, everything is connected. Like maybe we have separate different things in different boxes in order to make it easier for us to understand them. But at the end of the day, everything is there connected. And for example, the people who work like in therapy with psychedelics, I haven't done it myself, for example, but what psychedelics provide is the experience of actually seeing that unity in everything, that everything is connected at the end of the day, that there is no separation. And maybe super quick, we can talk
Mm.
about this super quick, like for example the psychedelic integration, because I want to mention this, I think. And thank you for the opportunity, Nathan, because you have been super open in your inner process of your challenges and things. I still have to be more confident about talking about my own experience. But
Mm.
a few years ago, I had an experience. Maybe I will be talking about this in the near future, in which I was able to like to understand the fabric of the universe in terms of consciousness. And for me, like I could understand in terms of symbols and everything how it was all taking place. And in the moment in which I was integrating that experience, I had the support of different people, and that was really good for me. And I mentioned this because I know that in these transitions that we have been having as humanity, many of us have been going through very deep awakening processes, and many of those have been super shocking. And at the same time, maybe there is like the need of going back to that state of bliss and joyfulness of knowing that everything is connected. And at the end of the day, after all this integration, what I have experienced is that uh, even though those higher states of consciousness maybe are not as present as in the moment as I experience them, I can see that the connection is there, even in the most simple things that I could experience in life, like eating a banana, for example. So, can you tell us a little bit about psychedelic integration? Why is it important in this?
Mm. So the reason that psychedelic integration is important, and I'll give you from my personal experiences again also, is having the right container to process the amount of information that you're taking on.
Hmm.
So especially when we're having a psychedelic experience isn't necessarily that you have to use plant medicines or psychedelic compounds or chemicals to get to this place. So this is important. You can do this through breath work because it releases DMT in the brain, and DMT is one of the prime ingredients of ayahuasca. The prime active chemicals in ayahuasca, but also using hypnotherapy as a psychedelic experience, because what psychedelic means is it means mind manifesting. It's your mind manifesting an image or a comprehension or an awareness, an inner landscape. So sometimes when people are working with me, just in hypnotherapy with no other substances involved, people have said to me that was stronger than my ayahuasca experience. Yeah, or they visualize something, or they see something so clearly, it's mind altering. Yeah, it's just like, wow, I didn't see that, I didn't realize that. Why? Because the human brain, Aldous Huxley referred to it as the reducing valve. The human brain can only take a certain number of bits of information in at one time. This is why, if I look here, I have this little circle about this big that's really, really clear, and then everything else is blurry, then I can't see anything else. I'm only aware of this part of the universe. I'm not aware of the whole thing. I can't compute that. My brain wouldn't be able to take it. So when we do psychedelics and have a psychedelic experience, what we do is we open the reducing valve up and we get a whole heap more information. We open ourselves up to a whole realm of light frequencies, sound frequencies, visualizations, parts of our brain, other parts of other people's brains, all of this sort of stuff. Yeah. Amazing, incredible things happen. And I'm not here to advocate the use of, by the way, for anybody. If it's your journey, it's your journey. If it's not, it's not. That's cool. But what happens is when we take those substances, our bandwidth opens up. We get a whole heap of information, and sometimes that amount of information can be really overwhelming. Sometimes we can get taken back to traumatic events which we'd forgotten, and we relive them or we re-see them. Or we open ourselves up to a completely different comprehension of the universe, which we just can't compute in this fabric of reality. So the psychedelic integration is really making sure, and it's in this, that preparation is the best integration, that you are preparing for your psychedelic journey. It's not that you suddenly wake up on Thursday morning and think, oh, do you know what? Tomorrow night, I think I'm going to go and drink ayahuasca or go and smoke toad venom or whatever, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Is you're conscious about this, you have a calling and you're like, okay, this might be the right route for me. I've spoken to the right practitioners. I've also kind of prepared myself, whether with therapy or daily journaling or medicine wheel work or whatever, before you're getting to your psychedelic experience, being held by a practiced, reputable facilitator or shaman or an indigenous person, whatever, First Nations person, fantastic. But again, still doing your due diligence, having your experience, and then having somebody just be present with you to hear you, to hold you. It's the same with the conscious parenting, to hear you, to hold you, to see you, to let those emotions process, to let those awarenesses process, to let whatever parts drop back into place. And having someone there to do that for you and letting you know that sometimes it might be a bit bonkers. It might be a bit crazy. There's times when I've had psychedelic experiences and afterwards, a week afterwards, I'm talking to someone and I'm like, I'm having this kind of almost like a separation from reality. It's like, I'm not actually here. I'm just observing this conversation and I'm having the conversation all at the same time. And it's like, it can be really disorientating, or if you have kind of almost like a flashback experience, if you've been using something like Bufo, 5-MeO DMT, which is a very, very strong psychedelic, And sometimes, a week later, all of a sudden, you're lying in bed, you're just about to go to sleep, and you reactivate and you have a full experience. Now, having someone there to hold that space and say, you're okay, we got you, let's talk about this, you've got support. Because what you're really doing is like shaking the snow globe. I often use this analogy with people when I'm doing the therapy work. It's like shaking the snow globe. Like you can see the scenery inside the snow globe, and then you shake it, and then you can't see anything, can you? It's crazy. Everything's all over the place. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? And then as the snow starts to settle, everything starts to come back. But the scenery's changed. So it's really important that you have this held container, this community, you have presence, connection. Because what we see in those experiences can be really big. It can be too much. It can cause more trauma. And I know this from my personal experience from doing 16 ecstasy tablets and sniffing all that cocaine. That needed to happen in one way, shape, or form, because what actually happened is my personality snapped. Everything that wasn't serving me for the highest possible good snapped and broke and fell off. But I didn't know that. I didn't have the integration. I didn't have the container. So it took me 10 years to recover from that experience psychologically and physiologically. And it wasn't until a few years ago, and I was speaking to a lady that was involved in the studies at Imperial College in London, and she went, that was your personality doing this. That needed to happen in order to this. And I was just like, just her saying that made me calmer. Just someone being there to hold your hand and saying, this is totally normal. You're normal. Take a breath. Get your feet back on the soil. And kind of exploring that. Got some new friends, just dropped some messages in.
Yeah, I'm seeing, yeah. We can just skip those. Okay, yeah. Ok, great. Thank you so much, Nathan. Bueno, estamos hablando como de la integración psicodélica, que tiene que ver no solo con los psicodélicos como sustancias, sino esos momentos de experiencias cumbres donde las personas comprenden ciertas verdades del universo que pueden ir más allá de su comprensión a nivel del cerebro. Entonces, Nathan explica que, por ejemplo, cuando una persona recibe tanta información, a través ya sea de sustancias psicodélicas o comprensiones que a nivel de conciencia la persona ha llegado a tener, puede ser también a través de hipnoterapia, él lo que hace es ayudar a que las personas puedan integrar esas experiencias. Y así como él estaba hablando, como los niños que necesitan que alguien los apoye, que estén ahí para ellos, nosotros también en las experiencias que tenemos en el día a día, porque somos seres espirituales que estamos aquí evolucionando, la vida nos pone tal vez a prueba a veces. Yo le contaba a Nathan que hace unos años tuve una experiencia que yo llamo una experiencia cumbre importante en mi vida que cambió y me hizo comprender maneras de cómo funciona el universo y pues fueron unas comprensiones muy grandes que tuve. Después de eso tuve pues un grupo de personas que me ayudaron a integrar la experiencia y para mí eso fue súper importante para integrar y entender como la información que yo había logrado recibir. En algún momento les podré compartir un poco más acerca de esto, pero entonces sabemos, digamos, que en estos espacios en los que estamos cambiando de una manera de estar en el mundo en la que vivimos de pronto como dormidos y aún despertar, esos despertares de conciencia traen de por sí mucha información. Entonces, pues es importante por eso tener el apoyo de personas que estén ahí para nosotros. Nathan dice, por ejemplo, que cuando él tuvo hace muchos años como una crisis en las que consumió muchas drogas, en esos momentos él tuvo el apoyo de varias personas y al mismo tiempo alguien le dijo en algún momento, tú tuviste que pasar por esas experiencias para dejar ir tu personalidad vieja y crear un nuevo ser. Y pues en ese momento él se sintió feliz de eso. Entonces, si alguno de ustedes que nos esté escuchando está pasando por algo así, pueden ponerse en contacto con Nathan o conmigo y pues nosotros también les daremos de pronto la guía o el apoyo que necesitan recibir en ese sentido. I am saying that if anyone who's listening has gone through an experience like this, they can contact you, whether you or me, and we can also guide you like to find the resources or the support that you might need to integrate those type of experiences. Thank you, Nathan. So I am super grateful with all your time, with all this abundance of wisdom that you have been sharing with us today. Super grateful.
Thank
And I
you.
hope it has been a good experience for you today.
Always, Anna. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, and please, if anyone has a conversation, anyone has a question about this, whether it's inner child work, regression work, whether it's psychedelic integration or support preparing for that, integrating afterwards, ask. You're better to ask someone. That doesn't mean you have to pay me to come and work with me for 12 sessions. But if you have a question, I would rather they ask me that question, and I can give you an answer or point you in the right direction to make sure you've got the right, that right route in, rather than going and doing something, I'll just go and do this and just try it out, and then actually you end up with a problem, because it's super easy to do that as well if you're not held in that space in the right way as well. So this is important.
Exactly. Great. Thank you so much. So I'm going to invite everyone. And Nathan has a beautiful Facebook group called Deeper Healing and Beyond. So if you feel like joining the group, I'm sure that you will benefit from all the beautiful things that Nathan posts daily. It's super fun. It's super inspiring as well. Like that space has inspired me a lot. Also to support these live streams that I have been doing. You have been so inspiring also with your lives, Facebook live that you do, and thank you for all that, Nathan. Los invito a todos a que sigan a Nathan en este grupo Deeper Healing and Beyond. Pueden encontrar material súper bonito. Nathan da mucho apoyo en todos los niveles. Él escribe también poesía, y todo es desde el nivel de conciencia que hemos estado hablando. So I hope that you can join. You can find him on Facebook, and as well you can look for Nathan on Instagram as Deeper Healing and Beyond, or on Facebook you can also find him on Nathan Simmonds Coaching, and he has his website as well, nathansimonscoaching.com. Thank you so much, Nathan.
You're very
Anything
welcome.
else?
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say before we say goodbye for today?
If it's okay, there's a couple of things that are out there which are there for people to tune into immediately. One, sign up on the website and you get a 4-week free hypnotherapy journey. Like
Oh,
you get a
wow.
journey every week for 4 weeks, focusing primarily on anxiety and kind of inner calm. So that's there. It's there for people to use, because there's so many people out there that are stressing or anxious about something. Go on the website, sign up to that, and you will get 4 journeys over 4 weeks to really help you.
Wow, that's so amazing. Thank you for that present. So
You're very
great.
welcome. And then on Tuesday, we got the new moon
Mhm.
journey for Scorpio. So we're going to be going on a crazy deep dive inside the subconscious mind and doing some wonderful work on Tuesday night, which is 8 o'clock UK time. So probably around about,
Tuesday is the 25th of October, I
yes,
think.
25th of October for the Scorpio new moon. So yeah, I do all this serious kind of inner child work, but also this neo-shamanism, new moon energy, full moon energy, and kind of just exploring what the subconscious mind has got to offer in new possible ways to see what comes up.
Oh, wow.
So
Thank you
yeah,
so much. That's so great. I am writing this down so people will remember. So Nathan nos está invitando a que podamos ver su página web, y ahí podemos encontrar un proceso de acompañamiento de hipnoterapia durante 4 semanas. Entonces es pues como un regalo que Nathan hace a las personas que visitan su página, y al mismo tiempo el 25 de octubre va a haber como un acompañamiento que Nathan va a hacer en la luna nueva de Escorpio, ¿ok? Para aquellas personas de pronto que todavía no saben cómo toda la influencia que los astros ejercen sobre nosotros realmente está pasando, y pues nos influye de maneras muy profundas. I'm saying that for those people that maybe haven't realized of the big power like the astral beings or the moon has, well, the moon is not an astral being, but like those powerful, how would you call them, that are in
energies.
the
Yeah, but it's got celestial bodies.
celestial bodies, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, like for whoever hasn't realized the big influence that celestial bodies has in our lives. Well, Nathan knows a lot about it, and it can help us integrate a lot. Sometimes we cannot even know why we're feeling in a certain way, and it might be because of those movements in
Yes.
the universe. Mm-hmm.
100%, but they're there. So please sign up to the website. Even if people are listening and their English isn't perfect, really
Mm-hmm.
don't worry about that. Like, really, because the subconscious mind will translate a lot of it for you. Like the superconscious mind, if your English is kind of
Yeah,
just about okay, cool, listen to it, see what comes up, take an hour for yourself to really calm the mind, and then come along to the journey and just see what comes up on Tuesday night, see what comes forward for you, okay?
that's great, Nathan. And this is why I have been trying to translate these live streams, because I know that the message goes through at various different levels. So even though sometimes maybe even the presence, the fact that you're here, the fact that people from other places can connect, like that help us maintain that field of connection. So thank you so much. Nathan nos invita a que, aunque el inglés de pronto que ustedes manejen no sea el más experto, que también vayan a la página, porque la experiencia a nivel inconsciente pues va a un nivel mucho más profundo que simplemente ustedes pueden recibir, y la información va a llegar así no sea a un nivel súper racional, sino a un nivel inconsciente que finalmente pues es el que hace el trabajo. Entonces, súper invitados a que lo puedan hacer. Thank you so much, Nathan, for everything. I would like to finish with a little melody here.
Vamos.
Vamos. I'm sorry. And for whoever is watching this afterwards, super welcome, and please drop comments so we know that you could watch. Para el que lo pueda ver esta transmisión después de que hayamos terminado, porfa, si nos dejan sus comentarios para saber que estuvieron ahí. Thank you so much, Nathan, and keep in touch with this amazing work that you're doing. Thank you for everything you give every day.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And thank you for everything you are as well.
Thank you. And to you, Anna. Oh, lovely.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, everyone, and see you next